Hey, welcome in Notre Dame fans to the Notre Dame football post-game show here at blueandgold.com. We are live on YouTube. We always appreciate our YouTube live audience, and we appreciate you guys listening back via YouTube and of course back via podcast as well. Please like this video. We would love to get over 200 likes. Hey, Notre Dame just won again. 8-0 on the season, so please let's get up to 200 likes on this video for those watching live or watching back. And if you're listening back via podcast, Apple Podcast specifically, please leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you like or don't like about the podcast here. Special thank you, as always, to Blake Way Panoramas for bringing some Fighting Irish spirit to my home office. All these videos, you can see this panorama behind me. See the entire Notre Dame sports collection at panoramas.com or bluegoldonline.com. All right, Mike, let's get right into some instant takeaways. Notre Dame's 45-31 victory over Boston College. We talked on Friday in a video for here on our YouTube page. We both thought Boston College would cover. We thought it'd be about a 9-10 point game. My score prediction was 33-24, which I remember you liked as well. So still close-ish game. Notre Dame was always in control, but a 2-touchdown win on the road. What are your instant thoughts?
Instant thoughts, Mike, were the second half was a different story from the first half, but the first half it was a little concerning. Like the instant takeaway is what could have been one of those kind of crazy Boston College type scenarios. Specifically, the onside kick stands out. We got a little lucky there. And after Kyren's fumble, we got lucky again with that errant snap on that shotgun snap that kind of went right by Phil there. So the turnovers were a little concerning, but yeah, I guess the takeaway, what I'm trying to say, Mike, is you didn't feel comfortable watching at home until the second half.
Okay.
So it was a little concerning. It was like, oh no, here we go again. So it was a little bit of uncharacteristic. Wasn't championship level quite in the first half. In the second half, though, you kind of fixed those problems, plugged some of those leaks, and then we sort of dominated from there out. I still think we probably gave up a few too many points. But that was the instant takeaway. It was like, man, if a couple balls bounced a little bit differently, what could have been, and we could be talking about a loss here, really, if they had a few more breaks go their way. So that was my instant takeaway. And then the other thing is, we'll get to players that flashed,
Yep.
But what a luxury we have with our offensive line. They do get more publicity than most offensive line units around the country, but
For good reason.
I mean, yeah, but just they're tremendous, man. And it seemed like today, they pulled Kyren, which we'll probably get into, but it seems like no matter who you have carrying the ball back there, they're going to make some hay. And Ian continues to have all day to distribute the ball. So that's just another real big takeaway for me.
Comment from Indy Pack Rat that we already have up on the screen is smash the like button again. We got 14 likes right now, guys. We gotta get way over 14 likes. So hit the like button for our YouTube live and for those watching back later. A couple of quick other housekeeping items. Send in a super chat. Send in a super sticker. That is basically your way to tip us if you like the show. Of course, this is all free. But if you like me, you like Goolsby, please send that in. You can choose the amount, whatever that is. It really helps support myself and Mr. Goolsby. And if you're interested in what we have going on at blueandgold.com, we have the promo code up there on the screen, and I'll read it for our podcast listeners as well. Promo code Nike75. So here's what the deal is. An annual subscription at blueandgold.com is $99.95 or something like that. So this gets you 25% off the first year of your annual subscription and a $75 Nike gift code, which you can use in store or online. All of the details are at blueandgold.com. You can't miss it. big banner on the top of the site. So if you want more information about that, go to blueandgold.com and you can find that. Again, that's promo code Nike75. That's a 25% off discount for your first year of your annual subscription and a free $75 Nike gift card. Mike, you mentioned we'll get into players that flashed. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Who really flashed to you?
We already touched on the offensive line, but that's kind of my number one as far as the topic is concerned. Book's going to be my number two. Accounted for quick math, like 360 plus yards of total offense between him using his legs and through the air. Just keeps getting just progressively better week to week, finishing out the season strong. So tremendous there. Skoranek had a hell of a game. We've touched on this previously and will continue to do so. Seems like he and Book have really found some chemistry. And I know preseason he was my candidate for the leader in receptions, et cetera.
Yep.
And things are kind of trending that way. So those are three. Sebo looked great until he went out with the injury. Hard running, man. Hard running. He's trying to earn his playing time. And then defensively, it's kind of a lame answer, Mike, but like the depth, I think the depth kind of flashes, and specifically with the front four, just rotating guys in. And it seems like every single week you got to go back to your roster and say, who is that kid? You know, sure. I hadn't seen him make a play before. So that's super encouraging. That lends itself to championship football. Specific players, let's talk about Bauer and let's talk about Kizer. Kizer, yet again, in very, very limited time, makes a play, creates a turnover, huge. So as far as from the linebacker position, I love talking about it, Mike. Our two interceptions on the season are from backups.
Yeah.
And then you have to ask the question, how long are they going to stay backups? Bauer wants to get to the ball. I love his intensity. It's just such a great, he's a more fluid athlete than White, and he has like a desire to get to the ball that I don't see from Drew. And Kizer, after he made that pick, I don't know if I saw Simon back out in the field. So those are two players defensively. And, you know, Hamilton almost had a pick six. Just a tough ball for him to catch. You know, it's like, do you catch it like this? Do you catch it like this? It was just thrown in a funny angle for him to make a play. Owusu had a nice pass breakup, so he flashed a little bit there. But defensively, your two backup linebackers flashed. And I'm very curious to see how that continues to play out throughout the remainder of the season as far as playing times, who's a starter, et cetera.
Got our first super chat. Annie Davis says, I want 4 of these $5 to go to Goolsby and 1 to Singer. So I appreciate it. Annie Davis is a blueandgold.com premium subscriber. So my man, maybe you can drop some comments in the live chat, tell people what they're missing by not subscribing. Let's throw up some stats here on the screen. You mentioned Book, Mike. 20 of 27, 283 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's back-to-back 2 of his best games this season, maybe in his career. I mentioned Skoranek, hat trick in touchdowns, 5 receptions, 63 yards and 3 scores, 5 of his 6 targets he caught. Javon McKinley had a nice game, 5 receptions, 48 yards. Kyren Williams, 4 receptions, 37 yards. Avery Davis, Mike, two receptions, 70 yards. I can't wait to talk about him in a little bit. That guy is just a baller. And then some game stats. Man, Notre Dame dropped 561 total yards. Boston College had 357. The rushing yards, look at that. 278 for Notre Dame on the ground. A game where Kyren Williams got banged up in the second half. Boston College only 85 yards. We'll get into Notre Dame's run defense as well as the pass defense specifically in that sense. Turnovers, a lot of them, 5 in the game. Notre Dame put the ball on the ground 3 times. No interceptions by Ian Book. When's the last time Ian Book threw an interception? I mean, that guy just takes care of the football, and you gotta love to see that. Super chat from Michael Ryan, $5. Appreciate that.
Hey, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, so I want to get back into the first half. Notre Dame scores first on the field goal. Boston College marches down the field, takes the 7-3 lead, and then Book and Tyree fumble on that zone read exchange. Then defense forces a fumble. 10-3 lead for Boston College at that point, Mike. Oh man, I gotta stop what I'm saying here. Jason says, "I'll tip you $10 if you shave that goatee off." You got a problem?
We've talked about it, Mike. You and I have talked about this.
I think my goat looks fine. Jason, the picture you have, you've got some facial hair too. You don't gotta hate. But all right, back on subject. Sorry. I still didn't have much concern. Boston College took the early 10-3 lead. Mike, I wonder if some of your concern is just from your playing days against Boston College, because I didn't really nowhere in this game did I feel like Notre Dame had any jeopardy of losing this game.
Well, yeah. Obviously, I have some bias based off of my previous, and I'll call it trauma, Boston College trauma. And who could fault me? Yeah, right. I was texting ex-teammates during the game. It's like, well, all these turnovers, we might as well throw some green jerseys on at halftime just to, pour more salt in the wound. But, the first drive was beautiful. And then ironically, we kind of hit a snag with the defensive penalty on Boston College, and that sort of threw off our mojo or the rhythm on that drive, and we wound up with a field goal. But yeah, were you concerned? No. I think Phil played a great game. Kids, he's a throwback type quarterback. I mean, reminds me of like a 1980s kind of quarterback back there, even with the way he drops back. But I don't know if we had a question there, Mike, but
did you have much concern? You kind of touched on that in our opening segment.
Concern isn't the word. But yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of a pucker factor there. I think there was, because it's just like, after that onside kick that ended up getting reversed and we got lucky there.
Yeah.
Or fortunate rather.
Yeah.
That and that's something we need to talk about too. For whatever reason, I'm a fan of Isaiah Pryor. I'm rooting for that kid. Mm-hmm. And like, the broadcaster said, "Oh, it looked like number 10 was trying to score a touchdown." I don't think that was the case. Boston College had scouted that. And that, before the kick, I think Jack Lamb is kind of the point person over the ball. And then the guys flanking him to his left and his right, they're 5 yards back. So strategically, when Boston College tried to execute that onside kick, they're aiming it right at the guy that's walked back. So traditionally speaking, you'll just have a straight line, almost a fence across the front line. So that's something to look for next week if we just kind of scrap that and go back to a traditional return. But yeah, it made me a little bit nervous, just because, it just didn't feel as clean, and the turnovers, they just made you a little bit nervous. And we touched on this just a little bit. I don't think we belabored the point on our pregame show, Mike, but the workload, the wear and tear that Kyren has, been put through up to this point of the season, I just wonder if that didn't kind of show itself a little bit today. So that's 2 fumbles now in the season that he's lost. I do think he has the coach's trust. He will be the continued starter. But I was really happy to see Kelly actually pull him out of the game and just be like, man, that guy took a beating last week. Yeah. All those blitz pickups, and that stuff matters, man. It really does. And then it obviously gives you more time to kind of groom Tyree and get Zebo his chance to tote the pill as well. So I think that the fumble issue, what we've seen, we don't want to make too much of it, but it's just something to kind of keep tabs on as well. But yeah, I was a little bit nervous. Guilty as charged, absolutely.
Mike, let's get into some quarterback talk. That was kind of the big story coming into the game. Not as much so.
Hey, Mike, before you get into this, sorry to cut you off, but did you know that Phil used to play for Notre Dame? Did you know that going into this game?
I tweeted during the game, Mike, if there was some kind of prop bet over-under on how many times that got discussed, I don't care what the number was, it hit the over. It was a lot.
Would have made for a hell of a drinking game too.
So up and down game. 18 of 40, 272 yards, touchdown, or a couple of touchdowns, and an interception. He also had 7 rushing attempts for 34 yards. So, what'd you think about the former Notre Dame quarterback? As you mentioned, Mike, he used to play for Notre Dame.
I like him. They're kind of similar to. I guess he's somewhat similar to Book in that they're both gamers. They're both scrappy. We're getting another super chat here.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. They're both scrappy players. But yeah, I think Phil does a lot with what he has around him. He does throw a nice deep ball, kind of drops it right in there. He'll continue to progress. Got some athleticism. I thought he played well. I'm sure he wishes he played a little bit better. But they don't really have a running game to speak of. So it's really the position that Phil's in over there at Boston College. It's more or less, Mike, it's all on him. And that kind of played itself out today. But Book, man, hopefully, we got to scroll back through all these message boards, Mike, all these message board posts over the last, we call it year and a half, Book versus Jurkovich, et cetera, et cetera. And I wonder how many people have kind of changed their tune now, because Book continues to ascend.
A lot have.
I do want to get into, our last couple text message exchanges, and, definitely create some fodder for the message boards. But is Book?
Don't
is
do
he
it. Don't do it.
Himself?
Don't do it.
Oh, you want to get there later?
No. Go ahead. No, that was next up. What I was going to ask you. Do it. No, do it, Mike. Do it.
Is Book, and I'm just asking. And we're obviously in kind of a thought silo on Notre Dame football. I don't get a chance to watch every game every week.
Right.
But is Book starting to play himself into Heisman contention?
So,
maybe last week, honest to God, Mike, after last week, rather, I thought that maybe Kyren might have been like a dark horse Heisman candidate.
Right.
But with the injury today, that sort of maybe knocks the likelihood down a bit. But yeah, his Book, you've got Justin Fields at Ohio State, you've got Alabama's quarterback, you've obviously got Trevor Lawrence, you've got BYU's quarterback. I mean, is he a top 5? He's got a signature win.
Yep. Signature drive.
Thoughts on that, Mike?
Well, yeah. So you mentioned Fields. Is he going to get 6 games? Is that all he's going to get before 6 or 7 games before New York? The thing is, if you're a playoff contention team, even if Notre Dame loses to Clemson, they still could get into the playoffs, and that would be in the ACC championship game. Who else? Such a funky year, and if you're in the top 4, especially if they beat Clemson, because I want to say, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, or Mike, I want to say the Heisman ceremony is just after conference championship week, but now this year, who knows when these things are going to be, but it's kind of an award where it's the quarterback on the best team, right? That's what the award's really turned into. It's a quarterback award unless you're an Alabama running back for the past 10, 20 years or whatever it is.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, if Alabama were to fall to Florida or something, Notre Dame sneaks into the number 1 spot. Guys, let us know what you think in the comments. I don't think it's a big thing on Book's numbers, because I don't think his numbers have been fantastic, but it could be kind of a by default thing. I don't know.
Well, and let's just clarify and be clear, because people like to interpret things however they do. We're suggesting that it's entirely possible that he could be up for. I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman, folks.
I'm not even saying he's going to be invited to New York or virtual Zoom or whatever it is.
Correct, but we're saying we're saying if he continues to play the way he's playing, and protect the ball, it's highly possible. Yeah. And that's exciting. That's really exciting and good for him.
Yeah. Let's discuss his performance today, Mike. Again, he had some big numbers, 20 for 27. So you have the efficiency quarterback rating of 198.8, 3 touchdowns, 283 yards. It seems like he's cured his happy feet. I just don't really remember seeing it.
Amen.
He seems comfortable in the pocket, and when he runs, he's running with a purpose. He knows what he's doing when he's scrambling. There was that one crossing route where he ran to his right and found Davis for one of Davis's two receptions. So thoughts on Ian Book's performance today coming after the Clemson game?
Yeah, it's remember Mike, a couple months ago, it's like if I could talk to Ian Book and almost like verbatim, I think what we said was like, you're the man,
Mm-hmm.
um, and play like it. And I think what you're seeing now is he's realizing like, yeah, I'm the man. And he's comfortable out there. The offensive line does a tremendous job of giving him time. Feels like he's realizing that. And then when he goes through his 1-2 progression, he pulls it down and runs. It's beautiful. And so you could sprinkle in that backyard element of football, and that lends itself to his kind of style of play. I think earlier in the season, you saw him trying to restrain himself and trying to force himself to stay in the pocket. And it seems like we've kind of thrown that out the window. I did see a couple notes here on our chat. How many times did Book miss Mayer today? So I want to address that specifically. I think it was Skoranic's third touchdown, and they highlighted it on the broadcast that Mayer was literally wide open.
Yeah.
And he's wide open. There's a blown coverage on their part, but they were bringing pressure. Book knows they're in man-to-man coverage, and it was a brilliant play designed by Coach Reese in that, the 1 and 2 receiver kind of gave a little stutter step, froze the corners. They ran inside, corners ran with them. And then Skoranek had one-on-one coverage with the middle of the field safety. And there's no way that safety is going to have the ability to get over to Skoranek. So what I hope folks realize is that may have been Book's primary read. So if that, however they play the switch up the coverage, he might come off of Skoranek and then look to Mayer. So his initial read was open and he threw the ball, right? It's not a video game where you're just trying to find an open guy running around back there. So people need to lay off that. I think he knows what he's doing. So,
Mike, we've talked about these receivers a ton. Every week we have a segment where we got to talk about the receivers. After the Clemson game, right? That was the Notre Dame receiving corps' biggest game of the year by far, right? I posted on our message board, who wants to talk about the receivers now? Like, who wants to really hate on them now? Still got hate. Still got hate on there. People were like, oh, Mike, it was just one game. My whole thing is like, guys, everything's Clemson. Clemson, right? They just performed against Clemson, and we're still complaining. Like, what do you want? They beat everybody. They beat Clemson. The receivers had a big game. Would you rather them look amazing against Georgia Tech and not good against Clemson, or vice versa? Well, here we are, Mike. Ben Skoranek is a baller. Javon McKinley, Avery Davis. So Braden Lindsey's out. Kevin Austin's out. Those are kind of the Notre Dame fans' favorite receivers on paper. You got Lindsey's the speedster. Austin's your big time boundary guy. Well, I think you have a pretty solid, reliable, you know what you're getting trio in Ben Skoranek, Javon McKinley, and Avery Davis in the slot, who I love. I think he's an NFL guy, Avery Davis. And then you got the tight ends, who we love. Tommy Tremble did not have a reception today, but dude's still a baller. He's still an NFL guy. Michael Mayer.
I've got a lot of thoughts.
Go ahead.
And I think it's important for people to understand that, like, our role here, Mike, like as much analyzing as you're trying to do, you're also trying to provide a little bit of entertainment and just food for thought, right? Mm-hmm. Again, in speaking with Coach McNulty before the season, the coaching staff was under the impression like Tremble would be gone after this year, right? He'd be going to the league. I don't know if he's catching enough balls to have enough film to play himself into first, second, third round draft status. So he's kind of relegated to this role as a blocker, and he's tremendous as a blocker, tremendous. So I wonder if that doesn't bring him back next year And that, like, next year is his opportunity to showcase his receiving ability. So just something to keep an eye on. Yeah, fans love Austin, fans love Lindsey because they're the ones that aren't playing, right? They're like, it's always that kind of pie in the sky. Um, it's like next man up. You know what I mean? This guy's not good enough. And we know what we have in terms of Skoranek and McKinley. And more importantly, Mike, Book knows what he has in Skoranek and McKinley. So that chemistry has continued to improve. We've seen evidence of that with these back shoulder fades to McKinley in previous weeks. And Skoranek's kind of become his sort of red zone target, which is something we've needed.
Yeah.
That offense tends to stall in the red zone. And generically, you want to just say, just pound the ball, hammer the ball. But if Book's got a reliable target that he feels comfortable throwing a 50-50 ball up to, and Skoranek, let's roll with it. Yeah, and Davis has been tremendous. And even Keys got loose a couple times. Late in the game, Book threw a beautiful pass to him, and Keys has to make that catch. We'll count that as a drop. But fans want, I think our fans want Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, you name the third guy. They want DeAndre Hopkins in the slot. But get real. We've got a really strong group that's continued to get better. And the arrow is definitely pointing up for our receiving core.
Man,
absolutely.
We still got a lot to talk about and get to some questions from the YouTube chat, as well as our message board, questions from our Rock News Roundtable premium message board at blueandgold.com. You get access to that, again, using promo code Nike75. All right, Mike, let's get into some turnovers. Yes, we have to discuss those because Notre Dame put the ball on the ground 3 times. I mentioned earlier Book and Tyree on that exchange. Kyren had a fumble, I believe it was on a reception, and Skoranek had a fumble. And then you potentially even had the onside kick from Boston College that we touched on earlier. So that even, I don't know if that technically counts as a turnover in the stat book, but that would have been a 4th. So look, you can't like that you've turned the ball over this much and you're having these many mental errors, but also, is it there a thing of we still won by 14 on the road coming into the game 5-3 Boston College team? So is there kind of like a glass half full way to look at that? What's your take, Mike?
I think a blanket statement, Captain Obvious over here, turnovers. The turnover margin specifically is the most important stat in football to me. Again, Captain Obvious statement. You could see today Boston College was making a concerted effort to punch the ball out. And they did a great job of it. It's not a concern per se, but you can't turn the ball over and win big games. You just can't do it. And, it's like, Kyren's got to figure it out a little bit. He ran a beautiful on his fumble. He ran a beautiful arrow route, beat the linebacker, and linebacker stayed with the play and punched the ball out, coming back to make the tackle. So that'll come with time, I think. He's still a young player. He's not, a grizzled vet at this point. He'll continue to learn. So yeah, it's a problem. It's not a huge problem. But probably the takeaway there, though, Mike, is you caught the ball up 3 times, and you were never super concerned that you were going to lose the game because of it. So it's like you can kind of take your lumps, make a couple mistakes, and that happens. This is young men playing football at a high level on a big stage, and they can still come out with a convincing win. So I think it's a little bit of a concern, but we should be optimistic because they made some mistakes and we still won handily. So there's reason for optimism there.
Man, I got plenty more things to get to with you, Mike, but I might not be able to get to all of them. One thing I really wanted to get to is looking at the rest of the schedule. Notre Dame plays Black Friday against North Carolina, but I don't really think there's going to be much in-person shopping for Black Friday. I love Black Friday. I like to go to Walmart and people watch, but, I guess it's usually now on Thanksgiving. No one's watching this talk about Black Friday, but that's when Notre Dame plays North Carolina on the road, 3:30 kick. Next week, Notre Dame's last home game of the season. I mean, Notre Dame had such a front-loaded schedule of home games, and the Irish will host Syracuse December 5th. That's a 2:30 Eastern kick. And then December 12th at Wake Forest, a team that had a shootout in a loss with North Carolina today. And then if all goes well for Notre Dame in these next 3 games, you'd have to, or they will, if they win the next 3 games, even I think they could still lose one of these games and maybe get in with a tiebreaker. But of course, you want to see Notre Dame win against North Carolina, Syracuse, and Wake, and then play the December 19th ACC championship game. So Notre Dame improves to 8-0, I believe, on the season, Mike. How good of a time is this bye week coming? Because you had the emotional game against Clemson. All right, now we got to go on the road and play Phil Dracovic, which there's been so much talk about that leading up to the game. Could this bye week come at a more perfect time, Mike?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm just absolutely it's probably as evidenced by coaches pulling Kyren out of the game, which we touched on earlier today. And again, spoke about briefly in the pregame show. That kid specifically needs a rest. The defense, really in the first half looked a little bit sluggish, and understandably so. So yeah, give him some time off, get off your feet. Absolutely. It's important to kind of take your time, rest up, and continue on that championship drive, most definitely.
All right. We actually had a comment from our Rock News Roundtable message board from DB Hender saying that they announced today that the Heisman will be virtually awarded January 5th. So then you should have plenty of time for those voters to check out the conference championship game, if that is the case. All right, let's get into questions from the YouTube chat and pull some of these up. You guys have much? Scrolling through, why did Kyren Williams only get 9 carries? Quick
answer there. Yeah, this is guesswork, right? I'm not at the press conference talking to Coach Kelly. But yeah, he went through a battle last week against Clemson. And I think the will is there. But yeah, he caught the ball up. It's like, you know what, he's too important. Let's put him on the shelf, and we're going to roll out some different guys in Sebo and Tyree. In the grand scheme of things, that's a good thing. So Tyree continues to kind of build his comfort level, and he had a nice little run today. I think he had 74 yards in the ground. So that not necessarily a bad thing. Not necessarily a bad thing to pull Kyren out. And it's funny, like as an ex-player, like, with Kyren, guy's an animal, tough as nails, but he is 190 pounds, whatever he is. I was at a high school football game last night watching a few of my kids play, Mike, and there was a kid that was hurt, and they're like, the fans are yelling, "Come on, you could do it." And it's like, no, if you're hurt, you're hurt. You know what I'm saying? It's like his will might be there where he wants to get back up and play, but if he had a bad ankle sprain or whatever is the case, like, you got to take yourself out of the game, no matter how bad you want to do it. I think I trust Coach Kelly's judgment there in terms of pulling Kyren and just letting him rest up a little bit and getting some other guys some experience.
Question, what is the status on Sebo? I have my phone pulled up to see if there's any updates from that. Kelly tweeted, this is per Patrick Angle. Kelly said in his press conference, this is a tweet from Patrick Angle, blueandgold.com beat writer, that Kelly said Sebo Flemmer's situation doesn't appear to be a serious injury. So that's fantastic news. Notre Dame could not afford to have that. They really have 3 running backs that they have. They have Kyren Williams, Chris Tyree, and Sebo Flemster. You could maybe move Jafar Armstrong back to running back, but really that's it. So Notre Dame certainly needs a
Can we jump
Kyren
into
Williams.
this, Mike? I'm reading here.
Sure.
A couple back-to-back comments or questions about the perceived lack of our vertical passing game, and then our weakness on defense in terms of stopping the big plays through the air. I somewhat disagree that we have a lack of vertical passing game. it's still evolving, specifically up the seams like we talked about. But why would we try and, again, nobody's ever happy with anything, Mike, right? We just ran for 250 yards, and then you're going to say we don't have a vertical passing game, you know? And I don't know what coach had the quote, but it's like, anytime you put the ball in the air, like three things can happen and two of them are bad, right? So it's a much safer, more conservative kind of winning approach. You have the best offensive line in college football, talented backs. Yeah, just lean on the running game, right? We're in control of the game. So I don't think that we don't have a vertical passing game. Continue to stay tuned there. But I do think we need to shore some things up on the back end of our defense in terms of preventing the big plays. We talked about it on our pregame show that Flowers was a legitimate threat, and he kind of made a couple early plays in the game. So how do you address it? I don't know. I talked about this. You needed to leave Hamilton over the top. It seems like Coach Lee is having fun experimenting with letting Hamilton sort of play in that robber position, like we talked about post-game Clemson. And today he almost had a pick six. So I still think that Lee kind of likes to move some pieces around. We didn't have the pass rush from the front four that we started to become accustomed to seeing. But that's the balancing act. If you get a pass rush up front, Captain Obvious statement, it makes it easier for the back end to hold up. But we're going to have to figure out something to prevent the big play, because I think that's where if we have any weak spots on defense, that's it. You can't run the ball up against us up to this point. I mean, hell, you held Travis Etienne to 30 yards or whatever it was. So that's going to be something to continue to watch.
And that leads us into a good question here from Ennie Davis, who earlier sent in a super chat for our YouTube live audience. If you would like to send us a tip, we would really appreciate that. Super chat, super sticker, anything like that really helps our channel, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel. Like this video. We are only at 53 likes right now. We're 37 minutes into this thing, so I'm a little disappointed. So let's at least get to 100, guys. If you're watching this, please hit the thumbs up on the YouTube video. Ennie Davis says, where's the pass rush going to come from? There was only one sack on the day. That was Sean Crawford on a blitz where Phil did not see him. So, guys like Dalen Hayes, Ade Ogundeji, there's your Viper and your strong side end, not getting to the quarterback. And sacks aren't the only determining stat of pass rush, right? I mean, you can still get quarterback hurries, but as I say that, and look, there was only one of those today that Ade Ogundeji accounted for. So, any thoughts on the pass rush? Does Notre Dame just need to bring more pressure and hope Hamilton and the guys can take care of it in the secondary?
People have got to win one-on-one battles up front. Going back to Coach Lee, kind of playing with some of his toys or some of his pieces. This is 2 weeks in a row now. We've seen Foskey, and what a weird thing to say. Like, you've seen Foskey get beat in pass coverage, and it's hard to say that a defensive end's getting beat because he's making tremendous efforts on the play. But I'm kind of tired of seeing that. Let's just let Foskey leave his hand on the ground and do what he does best. So, yeah, the people have got to win one-on-one battles. That's what it comes down to. And, I mean, offensive line has traditionally been a strong point or strong component of BC's program for years. So nothing to be incredibly alarmed about. But Kyle Hamilton can fix a lot of things. And Kyle Hamilton fixes a lot of things in the run game where he just comes down and just makes those just eraser-type tackles. Yep. And maybe that'll be addressed in the future, but I said it after Clemson, and I'll say it again. Let him play center field, deep center field, so that he can roll off and help some of these corners make plays. And also McLeod, I've been a fan of his. I think that he's played a little bit beyond my initial expectations of him today. But today I saw him drop a pick, and I'm so sick of watching corners like drop picks, and they look at their hands and they do these just so annoying. Just catch the ball. But there was a play where Phil got loose. We made him uncomfortable in the pocket. Phil got loose, and then Nick McLeod's 30 yards deep in coverage, and he started to creep towards the line of scrimmage. Meanwhile, there's a guy behind him, and that's who Phil ended up completing a ball to. He's got to know better than that. Like, sink, find somebody. It's a scramble drill. Sink and find somebody to make a play. So there's stuff that can be fixed. You've seen the offense continue to progress, and I think you'll probably see the defense continue to progress on the back end. It's fixable.
Question here from Jigzer says, what's the best thing we did today? A lot of different ways you could go with that, Mike. I would imagine, or my answer at least, would be the progression of the passing game. It is just, there was no step back. I mean, Ian Book, 20 for 27, super efficient day. You got to like what Ben Skoranek did, just mossing dudes left and right. What's your answer to that now that I've rambled for a second? Let you come up with
No,
something.
I agree with you, Mike. I don't think, like, when you tune in to watch a Notre Dame game lately, we're going to score points. And yeah, today was just another example of that. So I would think I don't like that phrase, a team win. But yeah, offensively, it seems like Coach Reese is really finding his footing and gaining confidence. And you see it in Book's play. I would say the offensive approach as a whole is probably the best thing that we did today. And then maybe that's 1A, and maybe 1B, Mike, is the fact that we had some self-inflicted mistakes in the fumbles, and we just kind of weathered the storm that we sort of created for ourselves. And again, still won the game convincingly. So I think those are probably the two things that we did best.
Something you texted me about during the game, Mike, was you wanted to talk about the unsportsmanlike penalty call. So there was Ben Skoranek, when he just mossed that dude, he had a unsportsmanlike called on him, getting a little chippy. And then I believe it was Dalen Hayes was called for one as well. What were your thoughts on those calls on Notre Dame?
And wasn't there a third one?
I don't remember. Those are the only two I remember.
I remember Dalen Hayes was the first one, yes? Was that the initial one?
I can't remember which one happened. Those are the two I remembered.
Either way, I like it. In a game like this, I like it. No, it was who? No, there was, yes, it was Skoranek, it was Hayes, and then Sebo got one for taunting. Remember that? He made a tough run for a third down, or for a first down. Yeah, you don't want negative yardage, you don't want penalties, but it kind of goes back to that story we talked about in our pregame show, Mike, where like there's a lot of it's just kind of a nasty rivalry, and I think that I've been pretty vocal about this. I feel like at times Notre Dame football players, like, not that they're choir boys, but like you want them to be perfect gentlemen, and it's a game of football. And if a kid's going to let his what hang and kind of talk some smack out there, I'm for that. It shows me a little bit, and in a lot of ways, like, it's a negative play, but it does show leadership that you're not gonna back down. You've got some confidence. I kind of like to see it. It was frankly, it was refreshing to me to see. And Dalen Hayes is a captain. You want him to be smart out there, but in a weird way, man, that's leadership to me. I don't know how else to explain it, and I hope that makes sense coming out of my mouth, Mike.
Void Walker 2006 says, do you guys think our bye week will hurt our AP ranking? I really hope not. If Ohio State is like 1-0 and your Notre Dame's and Clemson are 5 or 6-0 at the time, and Ohio State just jumps right into the top 5, I would really hope that an 8-0 Notre Dame team with a win over Clemson would not affect anything in the AP ranking. I mean, heck, just last week, Alabama went from number 2 to number 1 after Clemson's loss, and they had a bye week. So I would think it would be ridiculous. But here's the other thing, Void Walker. AP poll doesn't mean crap. And I've said this on a few occasions. I think it's kind of a benchmark for the college football playoff committee of like, all right, well, this is where the AP, like, you can't ignore the AP in the coaches poll. But at the end of the day, they could put Notre Dame at number 8. Like, it's whatever they want to do. They would be ridiculous to do so. That's just the fact of the matter. Any comments on that, Mike? Move along.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's all. I agree.
Yeah. So we discussed this after the Pitt game when Notre Dame rolled them by, what was that, 42 points. We thought it would be close in that one. They crushed them. We thought it would be a blowout against Louisville. It was a 5-point game. We both thought it would be close against Boston College. And, of course, 14-point game. Notre Dame covered the spread. Was never in doubt. Does this speak to it's an any given Saturday thing? Like, you can't really look at, well, they beat this team by this team, so we should win by this. Like, any given Saturday, different things can happen. Also, Kelly just gets his team up for these games. Of course, there was they didn't look good against Louisville. They didn't look good against Virginia Tech last year when they should have won by more. But still, they win these games ever since that awful 2016 season.
Yeah, I think focusing in on this season, Mike, I really feel, and I can't, there's no way for me to confirm this, but I do feel like our early slate of games were against terrible teams. And I feel like the coaching staff was trying to see what they had. And you have to take into account, like, what a crazy year this has been, but like the training camp scenario, like the spring ball or lack thereof scenario. So those early slated games, the coaching staff was kind of learning on the fly. And I think that you saw a little bit of experimentation out there in terms of personnel and in terms of scheme. So, yes, it's in any given Saturday type scenario. I mean, that's why they play the games. If the result or the final score was a foregone conclusion, what the hell is the point of even playing? But I think that we're trending in the right direction, and that, like I just said a few minutes ago, I feel pretty confidently, and I have no wood around me. Oh, here I do. Knocking on wood, I feel pretty confidently that, like, we can go into the game and feel confident that, yes, we're going to score some points. And then it's just a matter of protecting the football like we do, hopefully creating a couple turnovers on defense, and securing the win. So I see what you're getting at. But yeah, I think early on in the season, it was just a matter of kind of feeling things out and having that luxury of playing lesser opponents, which give the coaching staff the opportunity to do that.
We've got some comments, people talking about the Michigan-Wisconsin game, another pick from Milton, another note, U of M is imploding again. You guys will have to let me know what the score is, what's going on in that game for those watching on live. I would love to keep abreast of what's going on there. So you feel comfortable with the offense, Mike, like your concerns about this team moving forwards, not on the offensive side of the ball. Yours is more defense, right? Pass rush. I mean, the run defense for Notre Dame, I would say, is elite. But the secondary outside of Hamilton is, look, you got a true freshman, former 3-star recruit from New Jersey in there, Clarence Lewis, who I thought was going to be a decent player, but did not see this. Tariq Bracy did play, but Clarence Lewis got the start. Nick McLeod's a solid player. It's a good secondary, but, man, Notre Dame plays Trevor Lawrence in December. We'll see how that goes. So there's my rambles. How are you feeling about this defense? The pass rush, shaky, but you have some really good players, good depth on the defensive line. Linebacking core, we love Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah. Secondary, we love Kyle Hamilton, but the second and third levels there, certainly no finished product. So what are your thoughts here, Mike?
Yeah. The pass rush today was spotty, but the previous few weeks they've been tremendous. So, and it's like the yin and yang of defensive football, in that the secondary is so closely intertwined with what's happening up front in terms of, and even with Coach Lee in terms of like the flexibility, what he can do coverage wise on the back end, if he has confidence in the front four. I mean, Boston College went max protect. They didn't. Right. It's like they weren't in an empty formation, 5 wides, 4 wides, out of 11 personnel, what have you. So they're, so again, wouldn't you wish you could be a fly on the wall for some of these coaches' meetings? So maybe BC comes into this game in terms of their prep this week, and that might have been one of their top concerns as far as their offensive game plan was stopping our pass rush. So they opted to go with kind of a heavy protection scheme back there. So the front four isn't a concern. I'm just saying on the back end, somebody needs to start making plays in sort of instilling confidence. And I wish McLeod just played a little bit like smarter football. And I wish that I think again, if you leave Hamilton to play center field and just play deep middle third, he's gonna erase a lot of mistakes. And I'll kind of leave it at that. Our corners are what they are. I think Bracey's a pretty good player. Crawford's played a lot of football too. Like a kid like that, you'd expect him to come up with a few more plays. You really would, just because Ellie's been there for 6 years. So, but I just think that if you leave Hamilton deep, he's been an eraser in a lot of capacities, and they're just more of the same if you let him, roam back there in third and long type scenarios.
Yeah, comment here, question from B Amazing. He says, hey, Mike, as you know, Phil transferred to BC because of lack of playing time. Do you think that Kelly's resistance of taking Book out will hurt QB recruiting? So I guess the comment on, late in these blowout games, Book doesn't really come out. They leave him in there. Any thoughts, Mike?
I would say no. I don't think it's going to hurt the recruiting. I mean, we play. So it's an interesting question, but the answer is no. But I see what they're getting at. We play a ton of young kids though. So like, if you're a young kid, all these young kids want to play. They want early playing time, which I sort of try and advise kids to like move that down their priority list, because everybody wants to get to the NFL. And in today's modern college football, like every single year, you'll have a kid that comes out of nowhere as a one-year starter and ends up being a first, second-round draft pick, especially at some of these football factories like Bama. But we play a lot of young kids. So, yeah, you're not putting in your backup down by 14 against a good football team in Boston College, but we're playing a true freshman tight end. We're playing a true freshman tailback. Kyle Hamilton played as a true freshman. So, yeah, good question. Answer is no. We play a lot of young kids, and coaches, as they're recruiting, have a significant amount of evidence to prove that.
Yeah, I'll give my answer here. It's the recruiting guy at blueandgold.com.
There you go.
I don't think so. I mean, your quarterback commit right now is Tyler Buckner, and he saw, and I think Notre Dame's going to get a pretty good one in the 2022 class as well. And if anything, Mike, it's kind of like, man, if I'm the guy, I know Notre Dame's going to stick by me, right? I mean, if I'm performing well, they're not going to, take me out or anything like that. No, I mean, Brian Kelly's gone to the second string guy, don't get me wrong, but he's clearly shown a lot of trust in Ian Book, the 3-star guy in the 2016 class. And there you come, Phil Jerkovic, top 100 type player in the 2018 class. And they've stuck, clearly they stuck with Ian Book through thick and thin.
Sure. And it'll be fascinating to see what this COVID year and this year not counting against your eligibility, what Book winds up doing. I think it's, that'll be interesting. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, Buckner's sick. And Book had 86 yards in the ground. I think when and if Buckner becomes your starting quarterback, you're going to see that on a regular basis, because he runs the ball like he's got a really live, fun arm. He's a fun player to watch. But when he carries the ball, he looks like a 3-star running back. He really does. He's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. The thing about Tyler is his freshman year of high school, he was playing receiver and safety. Sophomore year, he tears his ACL in the 4th play of the season. Third year, he counted for like 80, I want to say it was 81 touchdowns. And then his senior year, he doesn't get one because he's going to be enrolling early. So that's kind of an interesting thing, Mike. You have a quarterback coming in and enrolling early who really has 1 year of experience. Now, he's throwing a ton of passes, right? But we're talking game experience 1 year, so that'll be interesting. I think
Well, hell, yeah, and even 1 year at the position, frankly, right? If you,
Against bad competition in San Diego too. Like with the ball he's playing private league San Diego is
I
just
get it,
not very
yeah,
good. But
yeah.
the talent is there. Seeing him twice in person, talent is very much there. Annie Davis, our boy here, says Drew Pine for life. Mike, have you seen much of Drew Pine? Have you watched this tape much?
No,
No.
no.
True freshman quarterback. I actually watched it again this past week. Saw him once or twice in person as well. I want to say twice. He's 5 foot, 6 foot, or excuse me, 5'11", 6 foot in that range. So I feel like Notre Dame fans are like, oh, here we go again, another Ian Book, Tommy Reese. Like we want that big 6'5" quarterback, but Notre Dame fans don't sleep on Drew Pine. Kid's a baller. He's a really good player. We have a thought here from our Rock Knees Roundtable message board. Of course, we gotta treat our paying subscribers on our website, and you can become one by using promo code Nike75. This is DB Henders again. He says, gut feeling at this stage of games. Does this team have the feel of a championship team? I would say on offense, yes. On special teams, uncertain. And on defense, the jury's still out. The team speed on defense is as good as I can remember going back to 1973, which is a plus. But still don't have the feel of it being championship caliber. Well, in today's age, everything's pretty much a shootout. So, you can't really expect to hold any, championship caliber teams under, 20 points, 25 points these days. So you got to outscore everybody. But thoughts, Mike, on Notre Dame being a championship level team? I mean, they beat the best in Clemson.
Well, I've seen this. Yeah, I've seen this on the message boards too, where people are out of their minds. But Goolsby said that Notre Dame will never win a national championship, and that's like, I don't know how you could. I've never said that. I've said playing Notre Dame football is about more than winning national championships, and kids have to go to class. We graduate our kids. We become productive members of society. All these things. So, but to answer the question, it's starting to, yes, because again, we have an offense.
Yeah.
Right. You go back to our last national championship game against Bama, and we got our asses kicked. We're the ones doing the ass kicking now in terms of our ability to run the ball, and the talented backs that we have, and just the monsters that we have up front. There's a defensive lineman for BC today, number 97. He's a 3 technique. He literally was giving up 5 inches and 40 pounds. When you just looked at him standing next to our offensive line. So yeah. And I think we've got a really strong defensive line. I mean, and I think that's what championships teams are built. And the other thing too, you look at these SEC, and in my mind, I always lump Clemson in with the SEC because it's a similar type of athlete, similar type of program. You know what I'm saying, Mike?
Yeah.
In those crazy conference games, think about all the wild, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, LSU. Those games are it's crazy things happen in those games, right? And it's whoever kind of holds the ball last, or whoever makes the least amount of mistakes, because mistakes happen in those types of games, ends up coming out on top. And if you look at our team, Ian Book, again, knock on wood, does not turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to smash people in the mouth. We have the ability to stop the run. And then it's going to come down to, if you project a national championship game, can their quarterback make plays in the passing game to beat us? So yes, I do think that we're sort of trending that way, because we play great run defense. We can run the ball. We have a quarterback that's getting better and better and better, legitimately, doesn't turn the ball over. So yeah,
Got Kyle
I
Hamilton,
do believe that.
Jeremiah Usu-Cormosa. You got some playmakers. I do think you would like to see some more turnovers. They got to stop dropping picks. I know that pisses you off, Mike. They got to start catching these things, and that will go a long way to helping the offense out even more.
Absolutely. But what's weird too, having played in those big games, the environment matters, the vibe, it's the vibe matters in terms of your focus. You get that much more dialed in. You talk about Michael Jordan used to say, it's easier to be in the zone when you're in that type of environment, when the stakes are that high. So McLeod drops a pick today. in a national championship game, might his focus be 15% higher and just that laser focus where he does come up with that play. And like you saw us against Clemson kind of make some of those plays, especially like with the pass rush and stuff. Like you just give that little extra 5 to 10% matters, and sometimes it just comes out of you in those types of high stakes environments. So, but yeah, absolutely. I think we're trending towards being a championship team and playing championship level type ball for sure.
Yeah, question here from James. He says Tommy Tremble's playing great. Do you guys agree? Nice to see that position being used that way. We will go back to the stats here again. Did not have a reception, but man, you see him in that fullback role. Like, whoa, fullback? What's the heck is that? You actually seeing that now with Notre Dame's offense. So let's discuss Tommy Tremble again, Mike.
Yeah, again, beginning of the season, I didn't think he was going to be a blocker for the second time. Dead wrong about that, because people on the message boards love to call you out on anything that you say even close to being wrong. But I just was basing that based off of his body type, because he's kind of a longer guy. He doesn't look like a bruiser, but the effort's there. So like George Kittle isn't 260 pounds or whatever, but it's the energy and the effort and the technique. So, but yeah, and I do think that Tremble has that ability to get open and get loose in the passing game. You just haven't seen it yet. So it's just another thing that, like maybe we've got kind of holstered. Versus Clemson, we did see him detached, split out wide as a receiver. So ton of flexibility there. And hopefully we get him back next year. But we knew going into the season we're going to play multiple tight end sets. And yeah, I mean, how could you not be a fan of Tommy Tremble? And I think I said this last week, but just the humility that, week in and week out, you don't see him bitching or moaning about not getting balls. He's still out there banging heads. And yeah, it speaks to a lot about his character. It really does.
There's nothing with Tommy Tremble that I'm like, man, he's not catching any balls. Is he not as good? Like, there's nothing that would never even cross my mind. Like, he is a ball player through and through. When he's going to get the ball, he's going to make it happen. Same thing with Mike Mayer. Last question, then we're going to sign off here. Sure. Void Walker 2006 says, Mike, do you guys think that we have an elite run defense, though our secondary needs some work?
Yeah. But I think we've only played. The answer is yes, thus far. I think our front four is much more impactful in the run game than our linebackers are. I really do. And I'd love to see more Bo Bauer, and I'd love to see more Kaiser. I really, truly would. We've only played one talented back in Travis Etienne, who's a tremendously talented running back. But when you played Etienne without the added element of Trevor Lawrence carrying the ball. So DJ, their quarterback, didn't present the same type of threat that Trevor Lawrence did. So we could all focus more on Etienne in terms of on those quarterback read plays. So to answer the question, I don't think you'll get a true indication of how elite, if that's the word we want to use, our run defense really is until presumably we play Clemson for a second time, presumably with Trevor Lawrence. That'll be a real test, because that's going to test not only your physical ability, but the discipline aspect of it too, in terms of your keys and who's going to do what on those quarterback read plays. Because Trevor Lawrence is like a horse, man, when he gets going. I can't wait for his combine or pro day workout to see what he runs a 40 in. But I got to imagine he's a 4.55, 4.6 type kid, which is flying for a quarterback.
Yeah, I saw him his junior year of high school, and I'm like, who is Sunshine here? And he was a baller, and obviously still is. Last comment we'll take here. Pete Mulvey says, loves Captain Mike Goolsby. So, hey, Mike, you're getting some love. Former Notre Dame
Love
captain.
you too, Pete.
And that's going to do it for this live show. Again, if you're listening back via podcast, please give us a 5-star rating. Tell us why you love us. Tell us why you don't. But yeah, we'll take the 5-star. Please like this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Use promo code Nike75 as we have up on the screen. And that's at blueandgold.com. That gets you 25% off a year, first year of your subscription at blueandgold.com, and $75 Nike gift card. Also, I'm going to sneak this in there, a little promo for our magazine. If you want a copy of history of our, look, Blue and Gold Illustrated, we still have weekly magazines, everybody, during the football season. Go to bluegoldonline.com and purchase a single copy of the Clemson one. Title Echoes Awakened. I believe I actually have it right here. It's right here. I'm going to frame this thing. Echoes Awakened. This is our Clemson magazine. So everybody make sure you grab that as well. We're doing a ton here at blueandgold.com. We're doing a ton. So I'm Mike Singer, recruiting insider at blueandgold.com. And he's former Fighting Irish captain and linebacker Mike Goolsby. And we're signing off. We appreciate everybody watching or listening.